In 1324, one African king crashed the entire Mediterranean economy just by being too generous. While Europe was drowning in the Dark Ages, 3 African empires controlled more gold, more territory, and more power than Rome at its peak. You've been taught they never existed. That's not an accident. The first didn't just conquer Egypt, they had to teach the Egyptians how to be Egyptian again. The second built stone cities so advanced, European colonizers refused to believe Africans built them. And the third? Their emperor's pilgrimage to Mecca destabilized 3 continents. These were Africa's superpowers. These are the empires they erased from your textbooks. Let's bring them back. Let's begin with the Kingdom of Kush. For nearly a century, black pharaohs ruled Egypt, not as outsiders, but as rightful heirs to a kingdom that had become more powerful than Egypt itself. Centered in what's now Sudan, Kush had watched Egypt weaken for generations. By 750 BCE, they decided it was time to restore order. But this wasn't just conquest, it was a rescue mission. King Paye didn't storm Egypt with fire and sword. He was horrified by what he saw. Egyptian records carved in stone tell us Paye was disgusted. Temples had been abandoned. The worship of the gods forgotten. So he took Memphis, not for gold or slaves, but to restore sacred tradition. The irony is staggering. African kings had to teach Egyptians how to be Egyptian. And while they ruled Egypt as the 25th dynasty, they weren't just restoring the past, they were building their own future. Back home, the Kushites constructed pyramids that put Egypt to shame. The royal cemetery at Nuri holds more pyramids than all of Egypt combined. These weren't copies, they were innovations. Steeper, more elegant, built with techniques Egypt had lost. Kush perfected what the pharaohs had started. Their power, absolute. They controlled the gold mines of Nubia. They dominated ivory trade routes, and they forged iron, giving them military superiority no Bronze Age army could match. When the Assyrians finally pushed them out around 656 BCE, most empires would have crumbled. Not Kush. They simply moved south and kept ruling for 1,000 more years. Think about that. They outlasted the Assyrians who defeated them. They outlasted Babylon, Persia, even Alexander the Great. As empires rose and fell, Kush endured until 350 CE. But their greatest legacy wasn't just survival. It was this: African civilizations didn't just match the ancient world's greatest powers, they surpassed them. While Kush was fading into legend, another African empire was rising in the south. But wait, if these African empires were this powerful, why have you never heard of them? Because what I'm about to show you next will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about ancient Africa. Hit that subscribe button right now. We're exposing the buried histories that powerful people don't want you to discover. This next empire built something so magnificent, so impossible, that European colonizers would spend centuries lying about who created it. Great Zimbabwe wasn't just a city. It was a statement carved in stone. Between 1100 and 1450 CE, the Shona people built structures that defy everything we've been taught about medieval Africa. The great enclosure's walls soar 36 feet high and wrap 820 feet around, all without a single drop of mortar. Each granite block, weighing several tons, was quarried from nearby hills, split naturally into slabs, and moved without wheels or beasts of burden. They were lifted into place using nothing but human strength and mathematical precision. This is called dry stone masonry, and nearly 1,000 years later, those walls still stand, without a single crack. The curves and angles required engineering knowledge that modern architects still struggle with. The builders used geometry centuries before it appeared in European structures. When European colonizers arrived in the 1870s, they refused to believe Africans had built it. They invented theories about Phoenicians, Arabs, even lost tribes of Israel. Anyone but the local people. Because apparently, fitting multi-ton stones together like a perfect puzzle was beyond African capability. But the real power of Great Zimbabwe wasn't just in the stone, it was in the gold. Archaeologists have uncovered Chinese porcelain, Persian glass, Indian beads, and Arabian coins scattered through the ruins. This wasn't an isolated village, it was the nerve center of a global trade network. The Shona controlled gold mines, ivory trade, iron smelting, and textile production. At its peak, their influence spanned the entire Zimbabwean plateau, an area larger than modern France. While Europe struggled with sanitation, Africa was building stone cities and running international commerce at a scale unmatched for centuries. But even Great Zimbabwe's wealth was nothing compared to what was happening in West Africa. This is exactly why they erased these empires from history books. What you just witnessed proves that Africa wasn't waiting for European civilization. Africa was the civilization. If you're ready to uncover more suppressed truths that rewrite everything, smash that subscribe button. We're just getting started with the stories they tried to bury forever. Because what happened in West Africa makes everything else look small. Now we arrive at the empire that broke the global economy with generosity. In 1324, Mansa Musa of Mali set out on the most expensive pilgrimage in human history. He wasn't just going to Mecca, he was announcing that West Africa had arrived. His caravan stretched for miles, 60,000 people, 80 camels, 300 pounds of gold per camel, and Musa himself, draped in silk and gold, handing out wealth like it was worthless. When he reached Cairo, the economic center of the Mediterranean world, he did something no one had seen before. He gave away so much gold, it crashed the market for a decade. Egyptian merchants were stunned. Here was an African king distributing more wealth than most European monarchs even owned. But this wasn't showing off. It was economic warfare. Mali controlled the Bambuk and Bure goldfields, source of most gold reaching Europe and the Middle East. They also held the salt mines of Tagaza, where salt was literally worth its weight in gold. Control gold and salt, and you control medieval commerce. At its height, Mali stretched from the Atlantic to the Niger River bend, an empire larger than Western Europe. Timbuktu wasn't just a trade hub. It was a university city with 25,000 students studying everything from astronomy to Islamic law. While Europe was burning books, Mali was collecting them. But here's the most remarkable part. Musa's gold crash wasn't a mistake. It was a message to Cairo, to Baghdad, to the world. Mali was a superpower. It worked. After his return, Mali appeared on every map. Trade delegations followed. Diplomats arrived. The empire that once thrived in obscurity now dominated global commerce. For 2 centuries, Mali remained the beating heart of trans-Saharan trade, proving that African empires didn't just participate in global history, they defined it. 3 empires, 3 continents, over 2,000 years of African dominance that shaped the ancient world. The Kingdom of Kush didn't just rule Egypt, they saved it from collapse and perfected what the Pharaohs began. Great Zimbabwe didn't just build stone cities, they created global trade routes across 3 continents. And Mali didn't just control gold, they redefined what wealth meant to the medieval world. These weren't primitive societies waiting for European civilization. They were superpowers, innovators, the engines that drove global trade for over a millennium. So why don't we learn about them alongside Rome or Greece? Because acknowledging African greatness shatters the narrative that justified centuries of exploitation. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't stay buried. The past they tried to erase is rising again. And we're just getting started. If that blew your mind, you have to subscribe. This channel uncovers the empires they erased and the stories powerful people don't want you to know. Hit subscribe and join the history rebels rewriting the past.